Matthew chapter 7, verse 28 and 29. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one with authority and not as the teachers of the law. I love that moment. I tell one of my boys to do something, and they say, "Why?" You probably can guess what I say. When you have the power position, that's where your authority comes from, right? And it should be the end all reason, shouldn't it? Because I said so, because I'm the one in charge. While this proclamation of my authority works with my kids about 25% of the time, their obedience is only accompanied with at least an eye roll or a whatever dad. So, yeah, being a dad for me has meant learning where my real authority comes from. Turns out it comes from being available, reasonable, and vulnerable. Not so much because I said so. When Jesus said all these things in his inaugural sermon, it was an inarguable sermon. Evidently, there weren't a bunch of people objecting, saying, "Why should we have to do this?" But I have to think that neither were there people who felt like they were silenced by Jesus and not able to ask questions. Not so much why questions, but how. How do we do life like you just laid out before us? The power position is not something Jesus relied on when teaching or connecting with people. He didn't come to be the king before the cross, and he didn't need to. He had authority already by being who he was. And who he was is still who he is today. So, one way to reflect on Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount is to consider how he showed himself to be available, reasonable, and vulnerable as he spoke these words. If all the authority you have comes down to the power position you hold, you might get obedience, but you don't get anything else. But when you are available, reasonable, and vulnerable, you get so much more than obedience, because obedience isn't even the goal or the focus. The focus is connection and love and exploration of how much a person can grow and all that can be discovered in each other in a relationship that can go the distance through the decades into eternity itself. Being available means not putting up obstacles and yet recognizing and respecting boundaries. I want my sons to have access to me and to trust that they are welcomed, valued, and accepted when they come to me. And I want my sons also to know that when they need space, they have it, and their personal selves and possessions belong to them and are not mine for the taking. Being reasonable means having a real answer to the why question, and that asking why is not really a problem, because there should be reasons for why things happen or need to happen. Real reasons are understandable and can be communicated clearly. They engage both rational and emotional thought. And being reasonable means being able to take the time to work through the reasons. Having a child with Down syndrome has emphasized this for me. I cannot make a demand and expect my son to follow it, because he needs to understand and accept what I want him to do. That means, first of all, he needs time to process it, and probably even more importantly, a non-intense emotional space to process it. If I'm getting frustrated with how long it is taking for him to act or how he needs to verbally talk through what I'm telling him, it takes him even longer to get on the same page with me. We both end up losing, and he loses the most because he does not have the power position. People who are not in the power position always stand to lose big. And that is why being in a power position is such a sobering thing. If you exercise your authority only on the basis of your power position, chances are pretty high that you are abusing your power and other people are losing their own power for the sake of your own interest or gain. Which brings us to vulnerability. Who of us can ever get it right when it comes to exercising power and authority. So, what I need to do as the dad to my kids is apologize to them when I have crossed the boundary, when I have abused my authority, when I have depended only on because I said so. Make it clear that I broke the family rules and I need to make things right. When I do that, I show that it is possible for our relationship to grow by admitting wrong, being honest, taking responsibility, and saying sorry. It is possible to understand motivations and feelings and give grace. That there is no one who has a power position that exempts them from being a vulnerable human being. So today, I want to follow Jesus' lead, one who has authority and not just a power position, to do as he does, not just as he says.